Well, welcome to the Speak with People podcast. My name is Jason Raitz, and I am joined by my co-host, Dennis Poulette. How are you, Dennis?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's so good to have you on the podcast. As you may remember, this podcast exists because we believe our words matter, and healthy communication is oxygen for relationships and your leadership. So whether you communicate one-on-one, on a team, from the stage, or from the screen, we hope that the time you spend listening to this podcast inspires you, challenges you, encourages you to choose healthy communication. Because really when you do, everything changes in your world for the better. So we are excited because today we're closing out our 3-week series on the speaking pathway.
The pathway.
This has been exciting. For me, it's been exciting. You know, it's kind of selfish, maybe a little self-centered. You could tell me if it is. But, you know, this is something that I've been working through, bouncing ideas off of you and Christy and Zach and Dennis, the whole team for months and months and months. And now we've got the
pathway,
the speaking pathway. And hopefully this will be a tool for people, whether they communicate just to their family or they communicate just to team meetings at work, or they're doing sales presentations, or they're standing in front of an audience, or they're standing on an auditorium stage. And so this is a step-by-step directional guide to help you become a more effective, empathetic, captivating communicator. And you can actually get this information online, speakwithpeople.com/pathway, where you can kind of check all that information out. And so today we're closing out this 3-week series. So if you missed week 1 and week 2, let's do a really simple recap.
Quick overview.
Week 1, we talked about with or at. Are you someone who communicates with people, or are you someone who communicates at them? And we talked about all those different kind of differences.
Which is kind of the big idea of speak with people.
Huge.
Speak with people, not at them.
Because when you speak with people, it's high on empathy.
Yes.
Someone said on my Facebook page yesterday, there is an empathy epidemic going on. And I thought, that's it. That's why it's so important for us to speak with people. Boy, I just get excited.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the week 1, we said, hey, there's even a quiz, because maybe you're like, I don't know, do I speak with people? Do I speak at?
Yeah.
And so if you go to speakwithpeople.com/pathway, you can actually take the quiz. It's actually on the back of this sheet of paper, but you can find out. And if you're someone who speaks at people, it's okay. Like, it's okay. Sometimes, you know, we've got to be able to do some self-awareness so we can figure out, okay, here are a couple things that I need to change so I'm not someone who communicates at people
Constantly.
That was week 1. Week 2, we started going step by step into the pathway, and we looked at the first 4 steps. And it was fun for me because we recorded it at the speaker conference.
That's right.
Whew, for months, we talked about the speaker conference on this podcast.
Yep.
And now it's over.
It's over. Yeah.
It's over. Now we have to wait till 2020.
But it was fun.
It was
It was fun. You got to speak about the public speaking pathway.
We walked right through the public speaking pathway.
And we recorded the podcast, and we did the first 4 steps.
We did the first 4 steps in the podcast. And so just as a reminder,
you can listen to that one, by the way.
You can. Step number 1 of the public speaking pathway, assess and prioritize your health. We start with your health to make sure you're thinking about your emotional, relational, spiritual, mental, physical health, to make sure, you know, you're coming from a place of health. Step number 2, with or at. You got to discover if you're a with or at person, so you can start aligning yourself in the with category. Step number 3, you got to deeply and genuinely care for your audience. You go from being self-centered to audience-centered.
Whoa.
I like that. Mm-hmm. And then step 4, study and prepare. You got to get in. You got to start diving into the books. You got to know the information. You got to study. You probably no, you're not a super studier. You just read it once and then get an A. That's
I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
You though.
Oh,
I mean, you're like, I got a new book. I got a new book. I'm going to quote this guy. I'm going to quote that guy. I'm going to do this.
I got to read and study all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's like, for me to come up with like an idea on my own, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Look,
that's okay.
That's very good. So today, we're going to finish this by going through the final 4 steps. And I bet I just got you excited by saying final 4.
Yes, a little bit. It's Final 4 season.
It is Final 4 season. Your team is not in it anymore.
Neither is yours.
Neither is mine. Truthfully, though, college basketball's not one that I pay too much attention to. I probably haven't done a bracket since the Fab Five at University of Michigan.
It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. If I remember,
The youngins probably don't know who those guys
they
were.
probably don't.
Yeah.
They missed the time.
The guys that brought in the ginormous shorts.
Baggy shorts.
Big old baggy shorts.
It was not.
I don't know how they could dribble the ball between the legs because the shorts were so baggy.
It was not Bobby Hurley and Christian Leitner who brought in those baggy shorts.
No, they just brought in the championship.
All right. Well, let's.
Let's get on with the real thing. Here.
Let's get on here. So here we go. So if you follow these directions step by step by step over time, you keep working them. The end result. You're not going to have pieces left like you do in some directions. That was your joke from it.
Yes.
That was really good. But the end result is over time, you'll become a more effective, empathetic, captivating.
Yeah, and I think, I was just thinking about this as you were presenting the public speaking pathway. It's not just, like these 8 steps aren't just for if you have to do a speech. This is almost like a lifestyle thing. So if you might be listening and thinking, oh, I don't ever public speak, so I'm going to turn this one off, or I'm not going to listen to the pathway or whatever. But really, I was thinking this is like almost your take on what it means to be a healthy communicator just in general, like even before you step on a stage.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking about the steps.
So
prioritize your health. Do you present with or at people? Do you deeply and genuinely care? Do you study and prepare? What's number 6?
that's way before you even come on stage.
All of that stuff.
Right.
Like it's really about like, I need to do this stuff even before I get on stage and even when I'm never going to get on stage.
Yes.
These are the things that I need to do with my family. These are the things I need to do with my kids, with my wife, so that I can effectively communicate. If I'm not doing number 1, then we talked about this, then I end up taking it out on everybody.
Absolutely. I think 90% of your effectiveness happens before you're even on stage or before you present in front of your team, or this is the stuff that you're doing in private.
Even before you get asked to speak.
Absolutely.
Most of the time, if you're not doing any of this, nobody's asking you.
Yeah. Speak with people. The heart behind it is we really want to help you be a healthy communicator holistically through and through.
Right.
And so you are
all of those levels.
on all those levels. So,
all right. So let's get to the final 4.
Final 4. Well, here we go. So step number 5, embrace clarity. Whew. At the speaker conference, I titled this talk, The Ridiculous Power of Clarity.
Right. And you talked about a box.
I
the
did.
clarity box, which we've already kind of alluded to in another podcast, but you went pretty deep on the clarity box.
Yes, we went really deep. The goal for this step is to completely focus and organize your structure, your big idea, and the direction of what you're communicating. So this is like the linchpin. This is a very, I'm not a camper guy. I don't like camping at all. I can't even use it correctly in a sentence, obviously. Good thing I'm a communicator for a living. But a few times I've had to put a trailer onto a hitch, right? And there's that really important pin that goes in there, right? To hold that, all that together. This is that pin.
I'm waiting for a story where you forgot to put the pin in.
Oh, it happened. There's actually a Dr. Tom story where it pops off down the road and the trailer that we had goes right into the back of the truck.
Oh,
it was bad. Yeah. It was bad. But this is the linchpin. You've got to embrace clarity. I love this quote by Albert Einstein, back to me in the quote guy. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough.
I was listening to something the other day and I was thinking, I have no idea what this person is actually talking about. Like I was really trying to pay attention and I could not figure out the main point of what they were saying. And I don't even remember. It was some video or something online and I was like, I don't know. I'm clicking away because it's not clear.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's the tough part. And this is the beauty of this. Like this is where the power of the clarity box really does help you. This clarity box that helps you organize your thoughts. Now, there's 6 steps to this clarity box. So there's more steps to the process, but what it does is from beginning to end, it helps you put together whether you're doing a 5-minute talk, you're doing a 10-minute presentation, or you're doing a 40-minute keynote. And so it starts with getting all your event details organized. Then it goes into your focused details. And really step 2 is the biggest part of this because in this one, you're figuring out how to walk away with your big idea statement that you're going to say over and over. You're going to repeat it. It's going to be memorable. It's going to be applicable. So when you are listening, when someone is listening, they're going to be able to pick up on that and be able to go, oh, that's what that was about, instead of how often, there have been times where I get up in front of people and I'm speaking and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what am I talking about?
Or you repeat the same thing over and over, but that's not your main point.
That's not your main point.
And then people get distracted.
They do. What else in this step we look at is we look at a bunch of different structures on how you can organize a talk, because there's a ton of different structures out there, but we look at all of them so you can then figure out what the best one is for you. And then we talk about this big idea statement. And so we really go into, some people call it the one-liner, some people call it the vision statement, the thesis, there's all these different things. But really at the end of the day, this is the thing that you've just wrestled. You've wrestled these words together. So when someone says, hey, what are you talking about? Boom.
Yeah. And if you don't know what you're talking about, they're not going to know what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
So you get up, or even when you're making a phone call, hey, yeah, and you ramble and you ramble and you ramble, and then you're like, okay, so what was the point?
Right.
Of this whole conversation? You're like, when people are on the phone talking to me about that, I'm like, just get to the point. I want to know what's happening. Tell me what you need me to do.
And this is one of my weaknesses as a communicator, because I get into this mode of loving to talk and tell stories, and I can just keep going and going. It's one of the mistakes I made at my own conference. I just went too long in one of the talks, and I'm like, why did I go so long? Because I was just having such a good time, and I was sharing these stories.
But I think it was about storytelling, so it was okay.
Yeah, all right.
It ended up being
all right. John Maxwell, we've already referred to him, kind of the father of leadership, but he's definitely an author of leadership. He said the first time you say something, it's heard. The second time, it's recognized. And the third, it's learned. I mean, there's just that process. You got to be able to.
Anybody that's a parent knows that.
Absolutely.
You got to say it at least 7 times.
So step number 5, embrace clarity. Step number 6, tell stories that matter.
Tell stories that matter.
Tell stories that matter. The goal here is to ignite, captivate, and excite all the senses when you tell a story. Because the reality is, you could dump all this information on people, probably not going to remember it unless it's somehow partnered with and supports a story.
Yeah. I mean, I said it before. Tell a story that has a point, and then every point should have a story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's important. I mean, if you think about all of the things that we love as a society, we love movies, we love books, we love television shows, we love a lot of those things are storytelling. So yes. That's probably why we're so far into
our brains are wired that way.
Yeah.
They are wired to love story. And our brains go into daydream mode if we're not being captured by something like this. And so it's powerful. Donald Miller in his great book, Story Brand. If you haven't read Story Brand, you have to go out and buy it. He said, story helps because it's a sense-making mechanism.
Is it like a drinking game every time you mention Donald Miller or story?
I was just
take a sip of my coffee every time you say Donald.
I was just thinking in my head, should I be a Donald Miller affiliate? Could I start my own Donald Miller affiliate program, maybe without him knowing? Donald, if you're listening to this, first of all, that would be very, very exciting. But I know I should. But he says,
no,
story helps because it's a sense-making mechanism. Essentially, story formulas put everything in order so the brain doesn't have to work to understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
That's the power of story. And Donald in Story Brand, you can read it. He walks through the 7 essentials of a story, and then people are able to put 2 and 2. Tracy and I were watching a TV show on Netflix the other night, The Night Agent.
Never heard of it.
Fantastic TV show, action, adventure. He's a FBI agent who works the night desk in the White House. Really fun. But, I was trying to pay attention to those 7 essential components, and, they followed it.
Right.
You're you got to go through it. Story is so important. So in this step of the program, you've got to figure out, this is what people tell me all the time. Jason, I'm not like you. I don't have really cool things happen to me in life. And I'm like, false. Everybody does. You just have to relearn how to pay attention to the things happening to you.
Yeah. So I read this book called Storyworthy.
I was going to bring that
up. I passed it off to
yes.
you. I said, you need to read this book. Reading Storyworthy. And one of the most important things that I got out of that book was the idea of this thing called homework for life. And in the homework for life, it's every single day. You don't have to journal the whole story, but every single day you find one thing that you're going to write down that would be story-worthy.
Yep.
That's the name of the book, right? Yep. And so basically you think through your day, okay, so what in my day, if I had to encapsulate the thing that I'm going to remember from today, what would it be? and you would tell that story. Like I would probably tell the story of the fact that we've already recorded this podcast halfway, but we forgot something and we had to start over. And so like that's probably going to be unless something else happens to me today, that's my thing that I'm going to write down.
You are so kind, because really the story is you used we.
Well, I'm saying
We started recording,
being empathetic.
Jason totally forgot.
Yeah,
Gracious.
But the idea is, at the end of a month, you have 30 possible stories that you might develop into something that one day, and even you just write down one line. You don't write down the whole thing. You just write down, Jason messed up first take of Speak with People podcast.
Yeah.
And that will trigger my brain to remember that story.
Yep.
And so maybe one of these days, whenever I'm talking about failure or I'm talking about, something else, I can be like, oh yeah, one of these, 5 years ago, I was doing a podcast and I had to re-record, and here's there's plenty of those kinds of stories. So there's a lot of things happening in life.
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of
you just
observing.
get into the pattern of writing them down, or
It's a muscle.
It is.
If you work it, you can get it.
The other thing that I do too is as I'm going through the clarity box and I know what my keyword is and I know what I want them to know, and then once I think about, okay, the big idea, I'm like, okay, was there a moment in my life, and then that helps me start triggering ideas. Like for me in the blog post. So if you're listening to these podcasts, there's a blog post that goes along with each week. So if you go to the speakofpeople.com and you find the blog, there's a week 1, week 2, week 3. I write about in week 2, I write about my 5th grade year, which was a magical year. If you've ever seen a picture of 5th grade Jason, it brings a smile and delight.
Maybe that's
to young and old. Game. That should be it. But I had a teacher, Miss Chapey, who, yes, I developed a massive crush on, but she was such a incredible teacher that kind of involved us and brought us in. In the 3rd part of this blog post, I write then about my teacher in the 6th grade, who was an Army or an Air Force reserved captain. And she had a much different way of teaching than Miss Chapey. Miss Chapey was like all daisies and sunshine, and we're creating things today. And then, for Miss Oswald, it was like, get in class, sit down, we're going to go. Like they had, 2 different ways. But because I was going through the clarity box and I was thinking through moments, I was able to mine my mind. See what I did there?
I do.
Mine my mind for those stories. And I think we all do that. That's why I think mom and dad's, stepmom and dad's, families, it's so important to have meals together and then to ask each other questions. One of the best days I've had in years is just me and my mom and dad went out over Christmas break to St. Pete. We walked the pier and I just asked questions about their childhood.
Yeah.
And 47 years, I didn't even know some of these answers. It was just incredible. And so we just got to get into the pattern of doing those kind of things.
Yeah, it's great. The other day, my dad called me out of the blue and he was talking to me about his dad, about something that I have never heard before.
Right.
And I was like, that was my story-worthy story of the day. Like, wait a second. I never knew that was going on with my grandfather because I never met my grandfather. Mm-hmm. So when my dad talks about it, I'm like, these are things that I don't know.
Right.
And so it is a great thing to talk about the stories, to hear what's going on, and with your kids even.
Yeah.
Hey, what made today great?
That's fantastic.
What made today not so great?
Yep.
That kind of stuff.
Robert McKee said, storytelling is the most powerful way to put ideas in the world today. So tell stories that matter.
Yeah.
Bam.
We can talk about that all day.
We could. Step 7. Partner with laughter.
Partner with laughter.
Partner with laughter.
I don't think we like that here. We're very stoic in this podcast. This is a very...
Do you want to know how many times over the years I have just been... I'm not trying to create a woe is me here or whine a little bit, all that kind of stuff. But how many times people have told me that my obsession with laughter is just ridiculous.
Ridiculous bad or ridiculous?
Ridiculous bad. Yeah. Especially in teaching. Like, Jason, we don't always need to laugh, I mean, anyway, so that's my little soapbox.
I think it's why we get along so well.
Right.
Because I used to go into meetings and I would think that my entire job, and I'm a youth pastor, so, that's my training. My entire job was to make everybody laugh at the meeting.
That's it.
So I was like, I'm going into this meeting with all of these older people.
Yep.
And I'm just going to, every once in a while, interject something that's going to make the whole room bust out. Probably not the best thing to do all the time.
No, not all the time. There's gotta have to be wisdom.
But I love laughter.
But there's just this foundation in people that they're like, hey, the older we get, laughter is just, it's not deep. I think such great depth can be explored through laughter, because when we help our audience laugh, they lean in, they trust us more, and it breaks down the walls of hurt. I mean, I have stood before 1,000 middle school kids, and through laughter, I get them to listen.
I have a story for that.
Yes.
Okay.
Get the story.
So Monday we went to the soccer game, and the game finished over in Orlando. We're going to the parking garage to get our car, and we get our car, and I pull up to the thing, and the ticket booth is broken, so I have to go to the ticket thing and put it in, and it's putting it in, and it's not working, and on the thing it says, "You look great today," or "You're awesome," blah blah blah. And I'm like, but every time I put my ticket in, it says, "Ticket failed." And so the attendant walks up. This is like 11 o'clock at night. Game's over. It's like crazy laid out. And I'm like, I'm getting mixed signals here. Every time I put the thing in, it says that I'm horrible and that I can't get the ticket right. But then on here, the sticker says that I look great. And the guy just busts out laughing. And I'm like, okay, that was fun,
And he'll remember that moment.
And so he walks out. He's like, I gotta go pay for it, ring you up inside. So he takes my ticket, my card, and everything, and he comes back and he's like, "Oh, because you made me laugh, I gave you half off." And I was like, "Score!"
Damn.
Right? But this is a dumb story to illustrate the point of sometimes people are doing mundane things.
Yep.
And they need laughter.
Yes.
It's just like, why are we sitting here? Why so serious? I mean, I could have easily been like, your stupid machine isn't working and blah, blah, blah. And why I just want to go home. I got a 2-hour drive ahead of me.
Yep.
And no, I was like, hey, I don't understand here. I don't know what's going on.
Absolutely.
Busted out laughing.
I love that. And he'll remember that. I have a friend who's like, over the course of his career, has like literally made presentations in front of people who are, deciding on millions of dollars of products. He always helps bring laughter to those rooms first, because it's like it builds this common ground. The goal in this step is to build a deep partnership with laughter, because then it helps you build a deep partnership with your audience. I mean, this is going to be a little bit self-centered, so I apologize. But the amount of times people have said things to me like, I felt like I was the only one in the room when you were speaking up front. I think that happens through laughter. I think because I get people to laugh with me, they then trust me in order to say some of the hard stuff.
Yeah, comedy builds a connection. And that's the reason why it's funny.
That's quotable.
It's funny because
comedy builds the
it's
connection.
Funny because you think it's funny and I think it's funny, because somehow there's some connection between what you think and what I think, and all of a sudden our relationship gets closer.
Yes.
Because we used comedy.
Yes.
Or we used laughter in our presentation.
I love that. Judy Carter, she said, funny people aren't funny because funny things happen to us. We're funny because we take the tragedy that happens to us and turn it into comedy. So much of tragedy can come, so much of comedy can come from tragedy. And we can look back at those, funny moments. Like driving down the road one day, I had a couch sticking in the back of our truck and I didn't tie it down. My wife had told me to tie the truck down. My kids had told me to tie the truck down, tie the couch down. And I'm like, listen, I'm the man. I'm big and strong. I know what I'm doing driving down the road. My son at that time, Zach, he's probably 6, and he's giving me like a minute by minute, he's like, Dad, the
couch is moving.
The couch is moving.
Dad, the couch is moving.
And then
it moved an inch.
Yes. And then finally he's like, Dad. And I look in the rearview mirror and I hit a bump and the couch literally flies up like it's Dorothy's house in Wizard of the Oz. This thing is just spinning. It lands in the middle of the road. It opens up. It's a couch bed. The pillows come down on it. It's just one of those moments. And so, and in the moment, I wasn't really laughing. But now afterwards, this is such and for our family, as we sit around and tell that story, or when I tell that story when I'm speaking somewhere and one of my kids hear it, they're like, that is just, absolutely hilarious. This is the secret formula for laughter. The secret formula for when you're speaking is you use laughter and then you plus listening, plus learning, and that will equal life change. So if I get them laughing, they're going to lean in a bit. So they're going to listen at a deeper level. Then they're going to really start learning something. And then that's really going to help push the life change. And that's what we want to do as communicators. We want to help with those decisions. Laughter can tear those walls down. It can create those things that we all know about it. And so in this step, we talk about the keys to be able to help. And one of those keys is not saying, I have a super funny story for you.
It's hilarious. You're going to love it.
You're going to love it. No, don't do those.
Awesome.
Don't do those kind of
Yeah, you don't need to set it up. You don't want to set it up by saying you're going to tell the story.
Just go right into it. Charles Dickens said, there's nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor. It's just awesome. It's just awesome. Okay, step number 8, the final step. Craft the entire experience. Craft the entire.
What do you mean by that?
The goal here is to utilize and partner every creative tool available to clearly communicate in your speech and presentation. So instead of you just getting up and going, today's speech, we're going to talk about the United States of America. Probably should stand. No, I'm going to use every tool that I have available that I can. Dale Carnegie said there's always 3 speeches for every one you actually gave, the one you practiced, the one you gave, and the one you wish you gave.
Yeah, don't you love it when you have to speak, somebody says, so are you ready?
Yes.
My answer to that is I'm never ready till it's done. Because I'm not ready until I've actually given it.
It's so good.
Because I don't know what in the world I'm going to actually say.
Listen, earlier you said we need to do a Donald Miller, meter. I think we need to do a meter when Dennis says something that's like so mind-blowing that I'm like,
no, but
that was powerful.
But it's true. I don't know what, I have notes and I have an idea of how it's going to go.
Right.
And I've done the step of practicing and preparing and all the stuff that we talk about, but I still don't really know how it's going to go until I've given it, and then I can maybe evaluate it. And even then, my evaluation is different than your evaluation.
Sure.
The way I feel about this podcast is going to be different than the way you feel about the podcast. And so all of our experiences are different. So it's like one of those things. I don't know. So you're crafting that experience, but I love that quote that, you've got the one that you're going to give, you got the one that you actually gave, and so you're the one you practiced and then the one you actually gave.
Yeah, and this one you want to think through, okay, what are all the elements? So like in the clarity box, I use this word assets, and I think about what are the assets that are going to bring my big idea alive. So are there stories? Are there images? Like when I'm telling a story, if I tell the truck story, a lot of times I'll show a picture of a big giant truck, just to kind of do that. I was listening to someone speak last night, and they were telling a story about babysitting, or not babysitting, dog watching. It's a little bit different. Dog watching.
Not for some people.
Yeah, not for some people. Oh, the people with their dogs.
Okay. Let's not go there. Let's not go there.
But I was thinking, if
you just alienated some people
and the Speak With People team. I was thinking if they just bring pictures in as they're telling the story, it will add these stunning elements. If you are talking about, something, use it as a prop. Think through something tangible you can put in people's hands. Is there a scent or a smell you can use? Is there a different color lighting in the room? And there's just those different kind of things, those elements.
Which comes to the part of knowing where you're going to present.
Right.
We talked about that a while ago. It's in the clarity box, that step 1 of actually knowing what's going to happen. Where am I going to be? What's the lighting going to be like? Yep. Am I going to be on a stage? Yep. Am I going to have a podium?
Yep.
Or am I just in a conference room?
Absolutely.
Do I have a TV? Do I not have a TV? Do I need this? Do I need that?
And all those details.
When you know that, then you can craft the experience by figuring out, okay, I'm going to bring then a picture instead of rely on slides as a picture.
Yep.
I can actually print out a picture of 5th grade Jason.
Yep.
And then I'm going to
give everybody a tattoo, a scratch off tattoo of 5th grade Jason. This is the one too where you want to think through, okay, how do I need to improve my eye contact with people? How do I need to improve my body posture? How do I use my hands when I talk? How do I use my voice? Because my voice can go up, my voice can go down. You got to use every tool available to you.
Ooh.
So you just pique everyone's interest through the entire time, because you're not gonna hit everybody at once. So all these different elements are gonna pique other people's difference, and you'll be able to do it. Paul Arden said, the more strikingly visual your presentation is, the more people will remember it, and more importantly, they will remember you. Woo! That's some powerful stuff.
That's true.
That's some powerful stuff. Shout out.
One of the things that we do, I'm sorry, you were going to say, I think one of the things we do wrong a lot of times is we rely on the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, my all of my visuals are just my PowerPoint presentation. or my keynote or whatever. And then, so whatever's on the slides, that's my entire visual thing. Well, I don't really want people always paying attention to the slides. I do want them to look at me every once in a while.
Yes.
So maybe I need to bring in, a basket full of eggs whenever I'm going to talk about something that has to do with a basket full of eggs.
And to think through, what are you wearing?
Yeah.
Because like one of my pet peeves is people who wear hats up front. And I get it that it's cool, especially young kids, wear a hat. But like,
you sound so old right now.
It sounds so old. But one of the things that is the absolute worst thing you can do as a communicator is to hide your eyes from those people that you're speaking about. Because someone said it once, I don't know who, maybe Aristotle, the eyes are the heart of the soul. You might want to Google check that one. Might want to do a little fact check. But somebody said it, the eyes are the heart. And so if you're going to wear a hat, make sure people can see your eyes. Is there something on your shirt? Like I remember watching someone speak once and they literally had a shirt on with like the most vulgar, profane thing on their shirt. It was a funny joke or whatever. But in that context, that's all anybody could concentrate on.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, all right, guy. Like what?
Well, you should think that.
Like what are we doing here? But yeah, is there things that you can do? My laptop, I used to put it in front of me and I had like 15 stickers on it. Well, I mean, people like when I got to like slow parts of my talk, people would stare at those stickers, and then they have questions about those stickers or, just think through all of those different type of moments that you can do. I remember I did a talk once on anxiety. And when I walked up to give the talk, I was carrying duffel bags to illustrate like this is what people who are living with anxiety are going through. We're just carrying all this weight. So think through it. One time I used an illustration and I had this tall mirror and the mirror represented, our soul. And I talked about how our words matter. And when we think by just, mildly making fun of people, it doesn't do anything to them. So I took a squishy golf ball and I threw it at them and we're like, see, it doesn't do anything. And I said, the reality though is every single little, stab at people really does do something to their soul. And I took out a baseball and I threw it at the mirror, hoping to get this big giant crash to show that every single time we demean and dismantle but I must have bought the mirror from NASA because that thing would not break. And the baseball, and I throw a baseball pretty hard.
You're like Nolan Ryan.
22, 23 miles an hour.
Okay. When he was 3.
But, so we think through all of those illustrations. We just craft the entire experience together.
Yeah, you want it to be visual. That's a great quote.
So these are 8 steps that you can use for your communication to come alive. And like Dennis talked about earlier, I mean, this is a process. This is a journey. This is not going to happen overnight. You're not going to go to IKEA, get the bookshelves, end up with 2 or 3 parts left. The bookshelf's going to be up in the corner and then you're done. This is something that you're going to do over and over. So you're coming from a healthy place as a communicator. And again, go to speakwithpeople.com/pathway. And we'd love for you to be able to get that information. Dennis, this has been a great series. This was our first series we've ever done on the podcast.
Yeah. It's Public Speaking Pathway.
Public Speaking Pathway. More series to come, which in May, we're doing a family series. And so we're going to talk about communication. When it comes to marriage, when it comes to parenting, when it comes to family members who are struggling with anxiety, when it comes to divorce. Yeah, we're going to hit some topics because that hits all of us.
Yeah, with some great guests.
And we've got more exciting things coming ahead. So we just want to thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast. Again, thank you for checking out our website, speakwithpeople.com. And literally thank you for every download, every like, every comment, every share. I was just listening to Amy Porterfield the other day, who's like mega podcaster. Millions of people listen to her podcast. And she on her podcast, after millions of people, she's like, thank you for every single person who leaves a review. I was like, wow, she even does that with like thousands of reviews. So I wanted to say thank you to people who've left a review and will consider leaving a review. Really appreciate it. Well, again, this podcast exists because we believe words matter. And we believe healthy communication is oxygen for our relationships and our leadership. So whether you communicate one on a team, from a stage, or from a screen, we hope that our time today encouraged you to choose to communicate in healthy ways because your world will drastically improve. Dennis, thanks for joining me. Can't wait till next week. We'll see you next week. Thanks again. Bye.